The following podcast is a next level production.
Child of elder blood, child of wrath, the time of contempt is nigh. The world will die amidst frost and be reborn of the new sun. Reborn of elder blood, of the seed that has been sown. A seed that will not sprout but will burst into flame.
Hey panelers, welcome back to the show. I'm Steve.
Hi panelers, I'm Lara.
This is going to be a spoiler-full podcast of the 5th episode of The Witcher Season 2. Lara, why don't you give us our title and synopsis?
Yeah, this is episode 5, and it's called Turn Your Back. As a powerful mage joins the hunt for Ciri, she cuts a deal with Yesemir over his extraordinary discovery. Geralt explores the mystery of the monoliths.
Interesting. Yeah, it's about right, I guess. Mm-hmm. So what were your initial thoughts for this one?
Well, any episode with Jaskier is going to get good points from me. So it was great that this one had Jaskier in it. But this was actually a really good episode. I thought we got a lot of information on here. There was so much that happened. I don't even think I got all of it in my notes. So hopefully between the two of us, we cover it all. Jam-packed with questions or answers to questions, but even more questions now. And I give it a 9 out of 10 Twisted Mermaids, whatever the hell that is.
Twisted. That was a weird conversation between Yennefer and the prostitute. I still, even the second time around, I was like, what? But I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad they didn't make us wait long to find out Jaskier's fate, because I think if they had drawn that out, it would have been harder. The only criticism I have, it was a very talk heavy episode. Talky talk is what I like to say. But yeah, and there was a couple of conversations that when we get into our discussion, maybe you understood better than I did, because I was totally clueless on a couple of the conversations that were going on. So, but before we get into that, we need to introduce our new characters, our new faces this time. And our first one is Lydia. She is the mystery lady who enlists the imprisoned mage Rince to find Ciri.
And we also have Rince, the said imprisoned mage, who is sent to hunt down Ciri and ends up capturing and torturing Jaskier.
Yeah, and I have some questions, so when we get into it. So I think we should just go right into our top 5.
My freedom in exchange for being the White Flame's bounty hunter. I have no interest in owing a favor to Nilfgaard's false god.
How fortunate then for us both that I'm not working for Nilfgaard.
Why don't you go ahead and start, Lara?
My number 5 point is the Jaskier and Yennefer team up. We had a couple of different team ups this episode, probably a few different team ups, and in this one we get a little step back in time with Jaskier to see actually, what happened to him on the docks. We have to go back a little bit and find out what happened when he was singing in the tavern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really great to see them working together and get that little flashback of seeing Rince in the tavern there. And that's kind of flows right into, yours was short and sweet. It flows right into mine, which is, who is Lydia? Who is she? But not only who is she representing? Because at first I thought she was representing the witch in the woods, but now I'm not sure because of that end scene with her asking Yennefer to go find Ciri and bring Ciri.
Yeah.
And we don't know where that dungeon was. Yeah. That Rince was in.
I think there's a lot of questions about her because she says she's also not with Nilfgaard. So she's an independent contractor.
Yeah, for somebody. Mm-hmm. And, we like you said, we realized that he's the one that captured Jaskier outside of or they're on the docks, and that obviously means that she has some sort of intelligence or information, because she obviously has told Rents that Geralt has Ciri, and Jaskier was Geralt's traveling companion, so you need to go find Jaskier to find out where Geralt is. Does that seem like a correct?
Yeah, it does seem like somehow he got information, and I don't know if it's from Jaskier's songs, because he does say that, your material says otherwise. He thinks that Jaskier's covering something up about what he knows about Geralt. Yeah, and just the whole, with the team up of Jaskier and Yennefer, I really loved a few things about it. Well, for one, Joey Beatty's performance is just really great. We never get to see Jaskier in any other attitude except his sort of pompous, happy-go-lucky attitude. He's always considered a rake and a bit of a ladies' man, but in this he's being tortured, and we actually get to see him show a little more depth to his character.
Yeah, and then at the end, when he goes to try to find Yennefer, and he's either going to try to break her out or something, and when she disappears, you finally get your F-word episode. I don't know if you had a count of it, but there was plenty of them, and we had the mms back in this episode.
I didn't have my drinks at the ready. What the hell? And also Yennefer, we get to see her be, more resourceful. She doesn't have her magic, so she has to come up with a clever way of rescuing Jaskier without magic, and I thought that was just perfect.
It was great because he picked right up on it and tried to get her out, though, pretending to be his wife or telling the guy that she's his wife. And I thought it was great. They really played off each other really well in that brief kind of interaction there. And I had this in my notes, but I'm going to say it. The first time watching it, I was totally waiting for her to spit in his face when he lit his finger on fire, because she's drinking that alcohol. I'm like, yeah, she's going to spit in his face.
Well, half a second I thought, did she get her magic back? But I'm like, oh no, she just spit that alcohol right in his face.
Yeah. The only question that came to my mind with this is, why did the guy use the tavern? Is it just for convenience, you think? Or obviously this is not his town, but it just seemed rather convenient for Yennefer to be able to find them there at the tavern.
That's true. But I guess we kind of saw that the tavern was emptied out. It's morning, so everyone's probably sleeping off a hangover or something. So,
yeah,
it was pretty astute of the prostitute to tell Yennefer that he's probably at the last place you expected to find him.
Okay. Well, that's the only thing I really had kind of, not really criticism of it, but just kind of,
convenient.
Kind of questioning, convenient again. So what's your next one?
So my next one is the other team up of Geralt and Istredd. And we discover that Istredd has been helping Frangilla to escort elves into Sintra. He's looking over that map and he's saying, Frangilla says we can't take boats into Sintra, and he's trying to find a new path there. Then Geralt shows up, and he thinks at first that it's a joke that he's been sent by Triss.
I have that quote in my notes for quotes when we get there. So
yeah. He's like, what are you doing here? What these monsters are popping out of monoliths? Is this like some sort of joke? This is ridiculous. But they decide to pair up to go check out the monolith. And we learn that the monolith just outside of Sintra is one of the oldest monoliths on the continent. I like how they pair up to fight the Nilfgaard guards who try to take him in. Geralt, you think he's going to go ham on those guys, and all of a sudden you see a blast from behind him, and Istredd has sent some sort of energy bolt that way. And he's like, see, I am helpful.
Yeah, that was really, really great.
Yeah, I like that. And they have a bit of a talk about the monoliths, and I wasn't sure if we want to cover that or if it's later on in your points.
Yeah, I've got later on with the monolith, but if we want to go into it now, because this was my second point as well. So why don't we stay with Geralt and Istredd right now for a second, and then we'll talk about the monoliths later, because that's where my confusion about the whole thing of the conjunction and the gateways and all that was. So if we want to, but I did love that, like you said, he knocked the soldier off the horse, and they're kind of going back and forth, but we finally get a confirmation that Geralt did think that Yennefer was dead. And I love, again, it's another quote that I have, but I'm going to say it here because it's so short. I just loved when he says, Yennefer of Vangerberg, and he goes, you know her? And he goes, and Istredd says, well, you know Yenna? And, or Yenna, he says Yenna, and Geralt goes, Yen. So, like, they both had their own pet names for him. They realize that both of them are still in love with her. And so it's going to be an interesting love triangle going forward, because I think that's what, it seems to me anyway, why at the end of the episode when Geralt says, pack your things, we're leaving, I think he's going to go to try to track down Yennefer, and Istredd is probably going to try to track down Yennefer, and they're going to both be either working together to track her down or separately. I guess we'll find out in the next episode. But yeah, it was really, really cool to see that interaction between them, and them to both realize that they love the same woman.
Yeah, that was a good reveal too, because he mentions how she burned down the forces at Sodden and then went to Aretuza, and Geralt's like, after Sodden? Like, he couldn't believe that she was actually alive. And after all this time of him getting so close to the truth, it was really nice to have that reveal finally to him.
Yeah, and it was cool. I didn't catch it until the second episode that we kind of now understand what happened with Yennefer, because Rentz says that when he's talking to Jaskier about fire. He says most mages don't use fire because it's going to burn them up. And so I'm wondering if she isn't able to, obviously we hope she's not going to bring Ciri, or Geralt's not going to let her bring Ciri to the witch in the woods, but maybe this other mage has some way that she's going to be able to get her magic back, because he's learned to manipulate fire and not lose his magic. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that was interesting, because he says, you got it'll consume you if you don't use it properly.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping maybe he has a way of... and also, I guess they must have some way, and they did talk about that in a couple episodes ago, of they have ways of shielding mages where they can't use their power, and I'm assuming that's what was going on when he was in that cell, is they had some way to...
Dimeridium? Yeah. Every time the mages have their powers dampened or blocked off, it's because they're using some material called dimeridium, which I think they had in the first season too. I think Tisea was affected by dimeridium. It's a really hard word to say. And those that jail cell had dimeridium bars.
Okay, that makes sense then. So that was mine. What's your next one?
So I think I'm at my number 3 point, and that's just, we get a little bit more of the history of the continent. Throughout all of the characters' discussions, we learn from Yesemir that the mages were the first to weaponize the monsters, to use them against, I am assuming, the other forces that were on the continent at the time. And then when those were out of control, they created the Witchers by weaponizing humans with their magic. And the Witchers, at one point, basically saved humanity from the monsters. And so now Geralt and Istredd were talking together about the continent and the conjunction, and they believed at first that there were these spheres, I guess, out in space, and they collided. And when they collided, the monoliths were supposed to be the scars of that collision. But what Istredd proposes to Geralt is actually, instead of that being the place where the conjunction hit, what if it is actually the catalyst point from where the power is coming from?
Yeah, this is where I was kind of confused, and I'll move my point to here, because this is where I was kind of confused about this whole thing, again, with the conjunction. And it seemed like, from what Yesemir was saying and what Geralt and Istredd were saying, is that, okay, so it was elves, dwarves, and humans, and then all of a sudden these monsters started appearing. And what this conjunction whatever, these spheres, these other universes, like you said, collided. But I think what Istredd actually says, he thinks they collided and then like bounced off each other, basically. And now they're thinking that the monoliths were what drew the spheres to
somehow he says that it was the cattle. It wasn't the result. It was the thing that created it.
Yeah, and that the monsters are just they're not new monsters, they're just new to here. Mm-hmm. They're coming from somewhere, and the monoliths are now the gateways that they're crossing through from these other spheres to get into here. But yeah, I loved it. Yesemir said 300 years ago was when the Witchers were created. Ah. So now we know, we have kind of a timeline, or a time frame at least, that whether Yesemir was one of the first or not, I'm not sure about that, but he's definitely been around for a long time, and now they possibly have a way to start making Witchers again. And so yeah, that whole thing was really confusing, and I'm hoping there's a way to flesh it out, or maybe if I ever go back and watch it again, I can pick up more of what's going on, or find something, you find something about the conjunction out there that I'm not understanding that can give me a better. So I may try to research that this week about this conjunction and see if there's anything on the wiki or anything out there kind of explaining what it was. But I also thought it was interesting that Geralt still thinks of the mages as being human, but he doesn't think of himself and the other Witchers as being human.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
He says that about the mages, that even though they live long, they're still human. That have just have a really long lifespan, but Witchers are actually changed and they're not human anymore. So I thought that was interesting. That
is a bit strange, because we know that the mages aren't like real humans. I mean, they have something within them that can call up the chaos, and they're taught to control it. And they even mention, I think it was in last episode where she mentioned that if Pavetta had the power to control chaos, but it was never refined, then maybe that's why, she kind of exploded like that with her powers. But, we know that they're not fully human either. So that's really, and they do go through a bit of a change in order to receive their magic.
Right. And we know that Yennefer went through a major change. Mm-hmm. So it's all just interesting to hear kind of the way they interact with each other. But I did find that really, really interesting. All right. So that's all I had for mine, for my next one with that. What's your number 2?
And number 2 is, how long can Yennefer hold off the temptation of the Deathless Mother? We see in the town there's people are trying to take this poor elfin girl, I think she's probably half elf, and put her on one of the carts with wagons that are taking away the elves to probably one of these encampments, and her mother's screaming, and Yennefer's trying to help her, trying to summon up her magic, and the Deathless Mother is talking to her in her head, basically saying, all you need to do is let me know what you want. What do you want for your magic? She's basically...
Yeah, and the prostitute is like, what's wrong with your hand? What are you doing with your hand?
Tinnitus, leave me alone.
Yeah, that's another one of those things that there at the end, when I don't know if she fully gave in or she just wanted to escape from the soldiers or from being executed, because she gives in there at the end, and she's there with, like you said, the Deathless Mother, the witch in the woods, and she's presenting her with this. She's like, I don't want to owe anybody anything. I don't want to make any deals. If you're going to basically, she's just saying, if you're going to give me my power back, just give me my power back. And so the witch, the Deathless Mother says, well, no, there's got to be a trade-off. And that's when she shows her Ciri and says, if you bring this one to me, then you can get your powers back. And it'll be basically not a debt, but it'll be a trade kind of thing. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to find out, because obviously I'm assuming Yennefer does not realize, because did she meet Ciri?
No, they've never seen each other, but Ciri knows of her. They've never seen each other. Because the last Ciri thing she says to Geralt is, who's Yennefer?
Right. Okay. So Ciri knows of Yennefer, but Yennefer doesn't know of Ciri, which that leads kind of into my next one, which is Ciri's. We have some more information about Ciri's kind of elder blood, and I think I've got this worked out in my head, that the elders were elves, but not all elves are elders.
You think they're like high elves or something like that?
Like, yeah, like some sort of high elf. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm assuming, because the way everything kind of shaped out with this is, Triss says they don't know enough about the blood, and this is how I had in my notes. Triss says that they don't know enough about it. Yesemir, this is about concerning Ciri's elder blood. Triss says they don't know enough about it. Yesemir sees it as a way to make more witchers. Ciri sees it as a way for her to take control of her own fate. And that's what she's wanting to do when she's wanting to become a witcher. This is something I can control in my life. But like in the end, Geralt stops the process. So now we have this whole interaction in Ciri's head, and I'll talk more about that later. But during that whole thing, she says something about my grandmother hated the elves, and Yesemir says, well, maybe we hate the thing that's in ourselves. So that's where I think that that the elders are elves, some sort of like you said, like high elf or something like that. And they have all basically been, or they're thought to have been, bred out, that there's no more of them left. But that's also where magic comes from, though, because every time they're speaking magic, the subtitles say they're speaking elder.
Yes. Yeah, they were the first. Well, Istredd in the first season did tell Yennefer that the elves were the first to harness chaos for magic. So I don't know if he's talking about just the elves or the elders.
Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it, is just figuring out that, okay, the elders that they keep talking about are some sort of elf, and Ciri has that blood in her. She's some mix of elf, which we kind of already knew, or did we not? I guess we didn't really know it until last episode.
Yeah,
when the things
we knew that she was different somehow.
Right, and her power is wow.
Yeah.
Because when she said Geralt's name, they heard it all the way over in Central.
It reverberated through the monolith. That's what it seemed like to me. She was like phoning it in through monolith.
So we're at your number one, I think.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, all of this stuff about the conjunction and the elders and everything. I know that there are people out there who have probably read the books or played the games, and they know all of this stuff already. They're probably yelling at us through their headphones, but I am actually trying not to look into some of the stuff too much, because I want to see how much the show tells me that I can figure out just by watching the show.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I was gonna bring up. I think it's in my notes later, but the fact that you mentioned that I guess in the books or in the games there are multiple Witcher schools throughout the continent. But in this episode, Yesemir seemed to make it pretty clear that Kaer Morhen is the only Witcher school, was the only place.
I thought he was kind of saying that. Well, I don't know if it's the only Witcher school or the only one that can do the ceremony or you create the mutagens to create witchers, but it could be that in the TV version it is the only school on the continent.
That's the impression I got, was that he was saying that if we don't make more witchers, or not, that they're like, we haven't seen any of these are the only witchers we've seen is in this group, and they haven't really alluded to any other. So that's the way I took it the way he was speaking, was it sounded to me like those 12 or 15 guys that we have, or 10, however many are there now, that's it. Yeah. That's all of them that are left.
True.
Because he says our numbers keep getting lower every year, and he wouldn't necessarily know that unless there's some sort of communication between. But again, we haven't seen any indication of that. So, like I said, they might reveal more of this later. But I think in this universe of The Witcher, I think these are the only ones. That's the theory I'm going to work with until we get more information.
Yeah, and I could totally go in line with that as well. So my number one. Okay, my number one is the final team up, and that is of Ciri and Triss journeying into Ciri's mind.
I had this as well as my number one, so this will be a good discussion.
Cool, we could just talk it out together then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Triss, before Ciri jumps into trying to become a Witcher, first says, let's do this thing called the Daldusa, the Valley of the Soul. So basically, to me, it seemed like she was going to do exactly what Tissaia did to Kaer, but to a voluntary subject rather than just plowing deep into her mind. She's going to go into Ciri's mind with her and basically try to dig up, like, the secrets behind who Ciri is. So, first off, we kind of get the surface level of her mind. She walks into a tavern, and the Witcher brothers are there. We see Dara in there. We see...
I had that we see Dara there eating food, and I was like, is that him? I think that is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was current Dara. He should have been much younger in her memory, but... yeah, what can you do? He's grown quite a bit. She sees her grandmother, Calanthe, talking about the scarf that was sent to her by... I forgot her grandfather's name. I didn't write it down either.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
There's too many characters. She sees the friends that she used to play knuckle bones with, and then all of a sudden we look over and she sees her mother. And that's when Triss starts to say, something's wrong here. It's not supposed to be like this.
Yeah, because the mother looks up and the mother can definitely see her and knows that she's there. And it's like, yeah. And that's, like I said, I had that here in my notes for my number one, was that's when we start to see the concern on Triss's face, that she realizes there's something weird going on here. This is not a normal use of this spell. So it's as they begin this deeper kind of journey, it kind of surprised me on the second watch. I was like, why didn't she just pull her out right then? But I guess she wanted to investigate what was going on. And
even the Witchers, they come over and they say something like, come on, Ciri, let's go. You know, they try and tell her to come out, but they keep diving deeper into her subconscious, which is symbolized by them. They almost go into the subterranean tunnel with the rats and everything, which I felt meant they're like diving deeper into her subconscious. We hear a baby crying, and all of a sudden we walk into a room, and it's Pavetta and Dooney, basically on the day that they die. They're sitting there with her. Her dad says something about, you know, it doesn't matter if the prophecy's not real or not, they'll kill her. So there's obviously a prophecy that is linked to Ciri that might mean her doom.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that was a little confusing to me, but I liked what they gave us of it, and maybe they'll give us a little bit more on this, because I thought it was interesting. They were talking about fleeing the city. They were going to leave Sintra, and obviously something that we haven't seen yet stops them, and the baby Ciri ends up with Calanthe.
Yeah, so we never find out how what happened with Ciri, like if Dooney and Pavetta left for the boat without Ciri and died in that storm, or if somehow Ciri was saved in the storm. We don't know that, but we do know that her mother and father died on a boat that perished in a storm from season 1. But then her mother looks up and sees her there. And that's when we get into the deepest part of her subconscious, where she's in this completely strange dreamscape. And we see a woman sitting under a tree with a baby. And this goes back to Niveline's story of the elven warrior who married a human and had a child.
A human mage.
Mm-hmm.
A human mage
and an elven warrior. Yeah, we don't get a name for her, but she stands up. They realize she's dying. She's got blood coming out of her side, and Triss goes over there to try and heal her, and all of a sudden, go for it.
This was a moment that kind of confused me a little bit, because Trish is the one who's saying we shouldn't be interacting with the people in the dream, but yet she goes over to try to heal this elven warrior, which I thought was a little strange. And yeah, like you said, and then the elven warrior stands up and
grabs her by the neck, seems to possess Ciri, and says, "Child of elder blood, child of wrath, the time of contempt is nigh. The world will die amidst frost and be reborn of the new sun, reborn of elder blood, Of the seed that has been sown, a seed that will not sprout but will burst into flame.
Interesting. Yeah, I loved getting that call back to Nevelyn's story and seeing this. And so now we have this baby. I don't know if this baby is Ciri. Do you think Ciri could be the child?
Maybe the child reborn? Because that story was supposed to be an old story.
Okay, so yeah, it could be, or Ciri is just I don't know. It's so strange, but yeah, I love that whole scene. And then when they come out of it, Triss is just completely like she's frightened of Ciri, and she's like, "No, you're going to destroy the world, basically." And not even he can stop it, not even Geralt can stop it. And that's when we get this Ciri yelling for Geralt, and it just echoes, like you said, through the monoliths to all the way back to Istredd and Geralt. And I thought it was just a wonderful scene. We didn't get a big battle in this one, but we got a lot of information that I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, we did get some sort of mineral style monster.
Yeah.
That seemed to just climb right out of the monolith. Yeah. So the monsters are coming out of the monolith. And I thought, when they said these monsters were coming out of the monolith, I'm like, that's weird, because when we saw the monolith fall in the first season, it was just kind of like a maybe 12-foot high rock or something like that. We saw it fall, and then we did see the ground start to crack, but you see it in this episode, and it's this just huge, deep ridge.
And we see Cahir's flashback to it, to where he actually saw all that happen. And that's when he suddenly remembers that Ciri is the one who did that.
Yeah. So I can totally see the monsters coming out of it now, because I'm like, what? They came out of that little 12-foot stone? I don't get it. But yeah, we see it's much greater than when we saw it in the first season. What I was wondering from that monologue that the elf gives is, it says, "Of the seed that has been sown, a seed that will not sprout but will burst into flame." And a big theme of last season and this season is Yennefer's desire to have a child. Now, basically, we know if she has a seed, it will not sprout because she can't have children. Also, Geralt can't have children, but it says it is the seed that will not sprout but burst into flame. Does that have anything to do with any kind of offspring at all?
I don't know. And like that vision that Yennefer had a few episodes ago where the baby burst into flame, So there's a lot of that work in here that we're going to get 3 episodes left. So they got a lot to wrap up here in 3 episodes, but we know a season 3 is coming as well. So
yeah, and that's probably why there was so much in this episode. I'm at my number 1, and I still haven't even touched on Cahir, or Frangilla, or Francesca, or any of that.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to that. I've gotten all of my points out, and I'm into my notes. So if we want to switch over to those, we can do that. And some of mine have been talked about. One of the ones that I thought was interesting was when Istredd comes back to his room there, and the head. It was so funny when Geralt just throws that creature's head on the floor, and Istredd just watches it, and then he comes back, and it's still just there on the floor. I was like, "What? Why don't you clean it up or do something with it?"
Honestly, I thought it was going to sprout legs like the creatures in the thing and turn into some other kind of monster and attack Istredd.
I was waiting for the eye to pop open or something, and like it just didn't.
I'm like, get away from that thing. Don't just let it sit there.
But, he pulls out that family tree of the Calanthe, the nobility, I'm assuming, and we see all the different places from Calanthe, and then he comes off and to the side, and I think it was Queen Fiona of something, or Queen Fiona of Cintra, that had no branches coming off her, just by herself over there, and for some reason he was fixated on that. Did you pick up on anything with that? Or? Yeah,
I tried to stop and look at that family tree, but since I don't know who Fiona is, it could possibly be the elf under the tree. I just noticed the same thing as you. It stopped and didn't have branches above it.
So what else have we got here that we haven't talked about? Let's talk about Cahir for a minute.
Uh-huh. goes in as a refugee, is told to show his papers and get in line.
It was such a I am the gladiator reference from I'm whatever he says, I'm Maximus of the commander of the army of the north, and
yes.
all that. I used to have that memorized years ago, but I don't have. But he looks at that guy and he says, I'm commander, and he rolls off his whole name, which is like 5 or 6 words long. And then from behind you hear Fringilla go, Kaer?
Yeah.
So.
And man, they were staring daggers at each other. She's like, glad you're alive. Not really. No.
Yeah.
As she stands there with her new ally, Francesca.
Yes.
A very, very pregnant Francesca. I don't think the first time we saw her, she was that pregnant. So that has advanced very quickly.
Again, I'm not sure how much, because when Jaskier is being tortured, he says, I haven't seen Geralt in months. Mm-hmm. And I thought, for some reason, more time had passed than that. But I guess it has only been months, so.
Yeah, well, we know from, I think it's mentioned when Ciri and Geralt go to Kaer Morhen that she's been training for a month. So probably a month since they got there, which might have been just maybe a month and a week after Sodden.
Well, and we know that Yennefer was missing for a month.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's all included in there. So it's probably just been since Jaskier last saw Geralt. So, but yeah, that was an interesting interaction. And then of course we have Dara coming up there as well and saying who he is and where he's from, and them just letting him in. And
yeah,
so
and they're like, "Welcome back to your land." They're welcoming him in, and he's like to Kaer, "Get the back of the line."
Yeah.
Showing that maybe the elves are almost starting to take over the town.
That's what I was going to say. It almost seems like they're treating the elves better to a certain extent than the humans that are coming into Cintra. So, which is interesting.
One thing I did notice, Istredd, as he was looking at the map, mentions the Broccolon Forest, which we saw in the first season with all the Amazon-type warrior women.
Okay, that's where that was from. I couldn't remember what that reference was to. So thank you. Yeah, that was where they stopped and where they had Ciri and Dara stopped there, and they were going to let Ciri stay, but he couldn't stay, and she wouldn't stay without him. And then right after that, of course, he finds out that Calanthe is her grandmother, and he separates from her anyway. But that was a good.
And that's also where they gave Ciri that water of life or whatever it was, and she has one of her first visions.
Yeah, that's right. Man, I wish I'd gone back and watched the first season again. Let's see if there's anything else on mine. We're definitely going to see that flying monster again, I'm sure. It's got to come back at some point. And of course, we already talked about Yennefer calling out and meeting the witch in the woods again, saying the hut, hut line, turn your back to me, was really, really cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Any other notes there? What have we not talked about?
I think we've already talked about Rience giving us a little bit of fire magic education. You can burn yourself out with that. So hopefully, like you said, Yennefer can learn from him or somehow be able to control the fire magic without letting it completely consume her. And I'm guessing there's more to Witcher mutagen than Elder Blood, because we see Triss concocting it. And how does Triss know the recipe?
That was another thing that until I saw this in your notes, it didn't even dawn on me. But he did. It almost seems like, because remember in Nightmare of the Wolf, they talked about that there were Witcher mages who were doing the mutagenic alchemy stuff that we talked about so maybe she had some of that knowledge of the mutagenic alchemy that's used on Witchers to create them, because she did definitely mix more things than just the Finwood, the Finweed, and then the blood together. And then he did something to it. Yesemir did something to it as well. And then she shook it up or whatever she added some magical words and said, she said that incantation over top of it that made it bubble up and turn almost black, it seemed.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that they couldn't make the Witcher potions because all the mages who knew how to make it were gone, but at least in this universe, maybe it's just because they needed the Fenwid from Elder Blood, which was missing. And now that they've got it, then Triss, with her vast knowledge of botany and everything, knows how to create it.
Yeah, that's got to be where it's coming from.
I mean, we didn't talk much about the deal that Yesemir makes with Ciri, but she basically says she'll give him her blood in exchange for her becoming the first Witcher. So she's willing to be the guinea pig for that because she wants to make up for all the things that she feels all the harm she feels that she's caused from her powers.
Yeah, and that was an interesting deal because it looked like, so it was Triss was the one that was draining the blood from her as well. It wasn't Yesemir that was.
I thought it was Yesemir who did it.
No, Triss. If I watched it correctly the second time, Triss was the one standing over her, putting the thing in her arm and drawing the blood out of her. So again, it was kind of them working together to do it. But of course, at that point, Triss didn't know the deal that Yesemir had made with her, and so of course, even Triss objects to it. But I kind of got a little bit confused because, or not really confused, but it didn't make sense to me. How much blood are they going to have to take from her? I mean, obviously, she's probably similar to humans in our world who we blood is we can lose blood and our body's going to make it back again. Yeah. However our body does it, so they're not necessarily going to constantly drain all the blood out of her, but it looked like they did just enough so they could do one Witcher, and then of course they didn't, and so we left at the end of the episode with Yesemir with the needle. I
wonder what the shelf life of that stuff is.
Exactly, that's the next question.
Is he going to find another guinea pig?
Yeah, how often are they going to have to bleed her if they're going to make more Witchers?
And you have to realize, I think Geralt said in the first season, like 3 out of 10 of the boys converted into Witchers survive. So even if they try and make 10 Witchers, they're only going to be able to have 3 make it through. Right.
So they're going to have to constantly be bleeding her out and stuff. So we'll see how that happens. But
oh my God, and that needle too. The minute I saw that needle, I'd be, okay, no, change my mind. Oh my God, it had like half a dozen giant, scary looking needles sticking out of it.
That was wicked looking. Yes, it was. All right. Any other notes that we haven't talked about?
I think that's it.
Well, we've got some quotes here.
Yeah, let me start with one from Jaskier, of course, as he's tied to the chair, and Rience is threatening him by doing his cool snap with his Bic lighter fingers. Jaskier says, I am but a humble bard, or if this is about your wife, or your mistress, or your niece, then I promise you that it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It's so Jaskier.
And my first one is we were talking about Istredd when he first meets Geralt and he talks about the monolith being smashed. And Istredd says, tell Trish, I don't understand the prank, but points for imagination. And they say witchers are humorless bastards. All respect, Mr. Rivia. I'm trying to help elves find refuge here. You have any idea how completely effing insane you sound?
Another one that I loved was the exchange between Jaskier and Yen and the 2 brutes who come after them. Jaskier says, you don't get to play the damsel in distress. That's my job. And after Yen gets a swift knee to one of the guys, Jaskier says, oh, she's so scary. And his last one, of course, to the guys chasing him is, gentlemen, many men have wanted to punch me in the face. Now is your chance.
That's great. My other one is Triss to Yesemir when she says, I liked you better when you were a cynical old codger.
Perfect. Geralt says to Istredd, I worry more and more about you mages. Perhaps humans shouldn't live so long.
We talked about that. And then my last one is, I've already kind of did it, but when Geralt and Istredd are first talking about Yennefer, and Istredd says, you know Yenna? And Geralt says, Yen. So. And
then Yennefer's like, I hate both of those names. My last one was Geralt to Ciri, and I thought it was so sincere when he said, "You are already enough, Cirilla. You are extraordinary."
Yes, very, very good. Again, I didn't see any feedback for us this week, so we'll just continue pushing that out to people. That if you have something to say, let us know. Email us. We'll give you all of our information here in a few minutes at the end of the podcast. But for now, no real news. I didn't see any Witcher news out there. Nothing big to report for things going on in the Marvel universe. But so I guess we'll go straight into our podcast recommendations.
No, not the Super Bowl trailer for Multiverse of Madness.
Oh yes, I guess we can talk a little bit about that. I've watched it a couple of times. And there is a clip that seems to show the zombie Doctor Strange in live action mode. It's a really quick, like when I saw it, the second or third time I watched it, there was an ad before the actual trailer started. And at the end of that ad was where they had this quick clip that looked like the Doctor Strange zombie. And then it went into the trailer, the 2-minute or 3-minute trailer, whatever it was, which I thought was interesting. But what did you think of it? Are you excited?
Yeah, I think I'm actually more excited now than I was before. I was kind of interested in it, and my daughter and I really love Wanda Maximoff because we really got into WandaVision, and she really liked her. So yeah, I think we are in for Wanda, and I like Doctor Strange too. I think I liked it when we got to see Dark Strange at the end. So they're pulling in characters from Disney's What If. So I believe
that was great.
That's what it seems like.
That's what it looked like. Yeah, and Kevin Feige has said that What If is just as canon as the live action stuff. So we're going to get a kick out of seeing that. I've heard rumor. I mean, I have not watched anything that like breaks down the trailer yet. I probably should do that this week. Watch some YouTubers about breaking down the actual trailer. That supposedly there's a shot of Sharon Carter in it somewhere. I didn't catch it, but maybe there is something that's real quick. And I did love seeing that Dark Strange, or Strange Supreme as he was called in What If. So it's I'm excited for it. It's going to be interesting to see. We got to wait till May. But at least we got a date, and it's coming.
I actually did watch a breakdown by New Rock Stars, because occasionally I got to watch stuff while I'm washing dishes, and there was something big in there that I'm not going to mention, because if people heard it, they heard it, and they know what it is. But I'll let you just discover that little gem by yourself.
Okay, or after we finish recording, I'll have you tell me.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Okay, I will.
So we're all excited. Moon Knight is coming out next month.
Oh, yeah.
The end of March, we will have Moon Knight.
Oscar
That's
Isaacs.
going to be exciting. Yes, the plan right now is for Mark and I will be back to cover that one. That'll be a few weto after we wrap up this one. So we may bring you on for a couple episodes to see if we can have 3 of us see how that works out. Maybe I'll have to talk to Mark about that. But all right. So podcast recommendations. The only one I've really got this week that I was listening to was I picked back up on my Parks and Recollections podcast, which is with Rob Lowe and one of the writers of Parks and Recreation, where they're doing a rewatch of Parks and Recreation. And I just listened to the next one that was on my list, and it was really, really great. And Rob Lowe is such a great, just a big personality, and just his way of speaking just lifts you up.
I like him. He's just a nice dude, I think. After his tumultuous, teen brat pack years.
Yes.
And my recommendation this week is I'm a little behind, but I actually started listening to Paik and Rima on Strange Indeed, covering the Netflix series You, which is just bananas. If you've ever seen that show, they're on their 3rd season now, and it's just getting even more bananas than before.
From what I've heard, I've caught clips of it. From what I've heard, it sounds like that show has gone to the point where you love to watch it. It's just exciting.
You like to see all the miserable characters on it. You relish in watching them be just horrible, horrible people.
Exactly. Well, we have come to that point where we will talk about our feedback. We can be heard, obviously, if you're listening to us on your podcast player of choice, whether that's Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or whichever one you use. If there's an opportunity to give us a review, we would love to have a review that we can read, and we would give you a shout out on this podcast.
Yeah, check out our new website at www.panels2pixelspodcast.com. All of that spelled out as one word.
We are on Facebook, and that's facebook.com/panels2pixels.
We're on Twitter at panels2pixels, number 2, panels2pixels.
We have an email address, which is panels2pixels1@gmail.com. That's panels2pixels1. The TO is spelled out right in the middle, and the number 1@gmail.com.
And you can find us on YouTube if you search Panels to Pixels Podcast. Please give us a thumbs up.
We are on Instagram at Panels2Pixels Podcast, all spelled out one big, long, gigantic word. I don't know why I made the Instagram handle like that. I should have done something shorter. But it's Panels2Pixels Podcast, all spelled out on Instagram.
Check out all the other podcasts on the Next Level Podcast Network. We highly recommend them. Wilhelm, The Melting Pat, Podcast Zero, and so much more. Go to nextlevelradioonline.com to check them all out there.
And next week, we will continue with The Witcher Season 2, Episode 6, which is entitled Dear Friend.
Dear Friend.
Dear Friend. Well, where else can listeners hear us? Or for you, Lara, what's your podcast proposal of the week?
Okay, my podcast proposal of the week is going to be called The Tea-Cast. And you think to yourself, spill the tea? A celebrity gossip show? Right on. Oh, no. Each week, I will sit in a comfy wingback chair by a fire, possibly with a big fat Persian cat on my lap, sipping and reviewing teas from around the world, like oolong, rooibos, or maybe traditional Earl Grey, and we'll see during the podcast if that can convert a lifelong coffee drinker to a tea drinker.
Good luck. Daphne and I continue our discussions about Season 3 of Snowpiercer right here on Panels 2 Pixels. Well, this has been a great discussion. Lara, thank you once again for being on.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Good discussion.
You're very welcome. I'm Steve.
And I'm Lara.
And this has been Panels 2 Pixels, and we will see you on the next panel.
Good night.